Usually a pizza peel, it just consists of a plate part, just a flat part, and then a handle part. Well, this one's a little different. This one has additional part, two additional parts. One of them is the slider part right here. And then the other part of this is some parchment paper that you will put underneath and over the top of the plate. And I'll set this up in a minute and show you what it does. I'll just explain the idea. The idea is that you attach the parchment paper to this slider part, and as you move this slider forward, your pizza will be resting right here. As you move that slider forward, your pizza is going to be riding on top of the parchment paper, and that's how it's going to get from the pizza peel to your pizza stone or a pizza plate in the oven. Whereas with the traditional pizza peel, you have to add corn flour or just regular flour, and you kind of have to shake it off of the pizza peel, or move it forward, then pull it back really quickly. And anybody who's tried that has either spent a lot of time learning how to master it or made a lot of mess, doing that, because the dough is very soft. The toppings that you add, and the cheese, the veggies, meat, whatever, they're just going to fall off of that, and it's going to make a mess on your pizza stone. That's what happened to me in the past, and sometimes you get lucky and you're able to do it. Sometimes it just makes a big mess, and half the parts, half the cheese falls off of the side, and so that's the idea with this, is to try to address that problem. And I'll show you a little bit more details about this. One thing I would say right up front is that I started this project off with rough cut lumber, which would be not something you buy from, like, say, Home Depot or Lowe's. This is wood that's cut directly from the logs by a bandsaw mill into what's called slabs, and then you dry the wood, and then you need to take some additional steps to mill that wood down into dimensional lumber that you can actually use for projects. So that's what I did with this. It's an extra step. You can save a lot of money by doing it that way. It is extra work, but it's kind of fun to turn a piece of wood that was cut from a log into something like this that's a usable thing. And so some more details about this are that, let me show the bottom here, that you can see here this cut in the bottom, and that's where the parchment paper kind of goes through. I cut this with just a half-inch round bit from a router. It turned out pretty good when I used that. Got some other strips of 1/4-inch maple on the bottom. The idea with those are to stiffen up these areas in the back, mostly, where it's pretty thin on these sides here, and this is pretty thin as well. The other purpose of this wood is that with the parchment paper on the bottom, and this being the bottom of it, you'll set it down on your counter or on top of your table. So these are standoffs, right, that will try to keep the parchment paper away from surfaces that might not be clean, to keep your parchment paper clean. And let's see what else. The other thing is, and hopefully this will show up, but there's a taper on the plate. It starts out about a 1/2 inch, and then it goes down to about, I'm going to guess, it's about 1/4 inch, but then I round the very end, down to maybe 1/8 inch. So the plate is tapered, which is another detail that you don't get from a usual pizza peel, where it may be flat all the way down to maybe the very end, where it's got a round on the very end. And that's a lot easier to do than what's done here, where you have a full taper that starts at a 1/2 inch and then just does a gradual taper down to the 1/4 inch. Let's see, some other details with this. The dimension, this is a pretty big one. In hindsight, this is probably bigger than I actually really need. It's for pizzas that are about 16 inches, 15 or 16 inches. The parchment paper itself is 15.5 inches wide. That's a pretty big pizza. If I was to do it again, I'd probably make it a little bit smaller. But this dimension right here is the 15.5 inch dimension. Same thing up here. It's a little wider, of course, over here because you need some more material on the sides for support. I've got on the slider part, I've got hopefully it'll show up. There's an over travel stop right there, so you can't slide that thing off. And then on this side right here, that's the over travel stop on the other direction as well. So it's kind of locked in there. You've got room over here for a handle, a grab hold handle, right? And let's see. One other thing that I'm still kind of work in progress about this is right here, this area right here. Right now, I've got just screws that are holding the parchment paper in place. And my next step with this is I'm going to come up with a toolless way to clamp the parchment paper in place. So instead of 3 screws, I'm going to have a little lever that you can just move back and forth, right, to lock the parchment paper in place. That's kind of the next step for me. That, and also to oil this as well. Use some food grade mineral oil. Right now it's just it's just a rough sanded finish. That's it. And I'll add mineral oil to kind of try and preserve it, keep it from drying out and from cracking. But yeah, that's the big to-do left on this, is to come up with this toolless way to clamp the parchment paper down. Also, I'm going to get some heavier duty parchment paper. The stuff that I have right here, it's pretty easily ripped. You can kind of see right there that it's, with me experimenting with it, it's kind of ripped a little bit, but it's totally usable as is. It's just I'd like to see it a little bit stronger material. And yeah, that's it. This is a pretty simple design. Oh yeah, one other thing, just to show how to use it. Let me actually just put that parchment paper on, and I'll get back to show you guys how to actually use it. I've got a sheet of parchment paper added to the pizza peel, and you can see it's all both on the top side and on the bottom side. It's just a loop is what it is. It's just a loop that there it is on the bottom side. Hopefully you can see it. And yeah, I've got it just screwed down right now, but I'm going to come up with a toolless latch feature to hold the parchment paper and hold it better. Just 3 points for holding it down with screws is not really the good way to hold paper down like this, but wanted to show you the idea with it. And hopefully this comes across okay, but when you slide it like this, you can see the parchment paper is a loop. And now if I add something to this, like say this is the pizza, and I'm getting ready to put this into the oven, we'll just use the top of this oven as we're going into the oven. What you do is, hopefully it shows here, is what you do is you'd hold this slider part stationary with one hand, and then with the other part of this you pull back with this with the handle part. So stationary with the slide part and pull back with the handle part. I got the oven preheated. I've got a cast iron plate. I don't have a pizza stone. And the trick with this pizza peel is that you want to keep your left hand stationary once you get it positioned where you want to drop the pizza in place. Keep the left hand stationary and then pull with your right hand, pull back. So let's try it. This is actually the first time I've ever done this as well after making this. So you want to just kind of position the pizza peel where you want the pizza to end up, and you just pull with your right hand. And that works perfectly, actually. I'm impressed. I'm going to try and zoom in here so you can see it a little better right there. Alright, this is removal of the pizza out of the oven. It's done cooking. What you'll do is you'll hold with your right hand, in this view at least, hold the handle here stationary. You'll push with this other hand here into the pizza, and let's give it a try. This cast iron plate has a little lip on it, so it might be a little interesting getting it. Okay, there it goes. So yeah, you'll hold it with my right hand shown in this picture stationary, push with the left, push it in, and that grabs it and puts it right in the middle of the pizza peel, and that worked really good.